Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Mike Ames Recruitment Show, where we are going to be talking about 4 ways to turbo boost recruitment revenues. Now, Mike, this sounds quite interesting, I imagine, if you're a business owner.
Well, I think it is too, really, because in a minute, I'm going to share the story of my first business with you. It was a long time ago, so you could say it's not relevant, but I worked out the other day, I've consulted with over 100 recruitment companies since I started doing this about 10 years ago or something. And there's been other companies that we've dealt with as well. And I've noticed a pattern that what happened to us happens to a lot of people. The only difference is that we got out of it and then the revenues went, other people don't. They sort of bobble along. And there are reasons for that. And I want to share those reasons with people. We're having trouble, apparently.
Yes, I was just going to say, we are having trouble apparently streaming on LinkedIn, which I think means it hasn't gone out on LinkedIn. So I'm just checking. So if it hasn't, then I'm sure we will either try and re-record it. It still says it's waiting. So I'm not entirely sure what we should be doing. But let's carry on, and we might just have to post it and view it later on as a restream.
Yeah, people can watch it on YouTube if necessary.
Yes,
technology, eh? What can you do?
I know. I'm just going to see if I can post the YouTube link into there.
Okay, you do that. Right. So let me dig in, and if I can, and just share with you the story of how the business grew and why it did what it did, because some of you will have seen the graph to advertise this particular show, and you can see it's a funny old shape, really. So I'm going to do that with you. But first, what I just want to talk through with you is bedrock values that we had from the get-go in Software Knowledge, which was the name of this company, but also in Crimson and Flair, my company now. And they're values that I try and instill in other people because I think they're so powerful. And there's 3 of them. The first one is an obsession with quality. Now, we've talked about quality in this show quite a lot. Quality really, you can sum up in 2 things: efficiency. How efficient are you at doing what you're doing? And the second half is client feedback. What do the clients think? How good do they think you are? If you bring those 2 things together and then act upon what you learn so that you're continually improving, that's a very powerful force for business growth. The second one is to treat your employees like your partners. Now, hey, I don't know what you think about that, Kirst, but to me, that sounds like a bit of a throwaway line.
It does sound, and I don't want to insult neighbours across the pond, it sounds a tad American.
It does, I know. But it's different if you live it. And for me, what that means is if you think about a partner in a business, well, they share in the profits, they own some shares, they have an input in the way the business is shaped and its direction and how it's managed. They get a lot of freedom to do what they need to do when they need to do it. They're not heavily managed. And I think if you apply that treatment, that approach to your staff as well as your partners, actually, do you know what? People stay longer. And one of the secrets to exponential growth is a stable team, one that you're not losing people all the time. Churn is expensive in a business. So, ultimately that, and we've always done that, always from the get-go. And then the last thing is we always had a process to win high value clients. In comparison to what we do these days, I'd say it was pretty basic, actually. We always had one and we always followed it. And it was a long-term process.
Well, there's no technology back in them days, was there? In the olden days? No,
well, we had faxes and telexes. We had those.
I don't even know what one of those is.
Okay. To be honest, I'm not sure what telex is myself, really, to be fair.
Good.
But it was the long-term approach that we took to winning clients. We weren't vacancy scraping, focused on the end of the month or next month. We were trying to win high-value clients where there would be a steady stream of business forever. And that was different. Not a lot of people did that then, and not a lot of people do it now, but we did. And so what that did was, if you look, we started off in 4 years, steady growth. So 0 to nearly 5 million. I think it was something like 4,750,000 pounds. I can't remember now in detail, but you can see, and those 3 bedrock values enabled us to do that, and that was fairly straightforward. I think that kind of growth in recruitment isn't unusual, particularly in contract. I don't think that's too bad. But then that's what happened next.
The danger year. I'm sure most business owners watching this have probably experienced that sort of plateau before. By the way, just a quick introduction, quick interjection. People are transferring over from YouTube, so if you are on YouTube watching us, the comments still work exactly the same. So thank you for joining us. Sorry, Mike, carry on.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm so sorry about that, guys. We don't know what's wrong with LinkedIn. Who knows? Who can say? But as you can see here, that it plateaued out. Now, this happens quite a lot in businesses. Normally, it's a year or two later, but it happens, and then you get this undulation. You go a bit further, then you go a bit backwards. You go a bit further, and it's because you're not organised in a scalable way. And at this point, we discovered that we weren't scalable. There was way too much dependence on me as the leader. I was involved in everything. And a lot of people were doing things. We employed people, obviously, and they were very good. I just didn't let them be what they could be.
You became the bottleneck?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So at the beginning of the business life, it was a strength because I just made things happen. As we got bigger, it was massively, hugely a detriment. It held us back. And we hired a consultant. Her name was Anne-Marie Hanlon. She was a marketing consultant, actually. But what she did for us was taught me how to build a scalable business. And it's a really interesting subject in its entirety. But the first thing that she did, which I think made the biggest difference to me, was that she taught me how to delegate. Because up until that point, I'd either shared tasks, so I kind of kept them and was asking, have you done that thing, and how is it going with so and so, and people are thinking, well, am I doing this or what, really? Or then I went to the other extreme and abdicated tasks where I said, yeah, you do that, you'll be fine. And of course it went wrong because it wasn't delegated properly. The whole thing fell to pieces and it was a huge mess. So she taught me to delegate properly. She taught me how to actually structure when you pass on a responsibility, particularly. I mean, tasks I think are fairly easy, but she delegated a responsibility to people. She taught me how to do that, and that changed everything, right? I cannot tell you.
Well, it's a big thing when you take into that second thing that you mentioned with the bedrock, is that if you want your employees to be partners and you're abdicating to them, then that ruins that whole vibe, because then they don't feel empowered. They don't feel like they're part of the company. They don't have that part of it. And so that's why delegation is so key, because that's how you create partners, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly. Very good point there. You don't keep checking in on your partners. Well, you shouldn't really. And often I'm not going to get into delegation now, but often we blame the people we're delegating to if something goes wrong. But almost always, if something goes wrong, it's the person who's delegated that's at fault.
Right.
But anyway, I learned how to delegate. That made a big difference. Now, you can see as well, from that restructuring that she helped us do, we reorganized in a number of different ways. From that happened. So we went from that, which was just over 5 million, I think, to 40 million in 6 years.
Do you know, I did the inflation on this, and that's the equivalent of, in today's money, 7 million to nearly 62 million.
Yeah,
That's the equivalent here.
It was rapid growth, man, and I could talk a whole show about the problems that we had managing that kind of growth and keeping our service levels up. It was a nightmare, but nonetheless, it was a trying time, but we did it, as you can see. Now, I'm going to come back to the two of us because that's pretty much on that screen for the time being. So, I want to share with you the four things that we did, which really I think, on top of those bedrock values that we had, that I think had that effect. So the first thing was we began to sell a niche, not a service. So when, as a recruiter, hey, give me a job and I'll find you somebody. It's a service, really. I'm sure you wouldn't quite say it like that, but that's effectively what it is. I'm a service provider. You give me the opportunity and then I will find somebody and put them in for you, right? That's a service. It's hard to differentiate services. Other people have got a similar service that, so it comes down to price sometimes, or whether you like someone. It's really hard to grow in that way. You can productize, and we did to a certain extent, but the best product that you can have is access to a niche. hugely powerful. And we developed more and more niches. So now we're no longer saying, well, hey, you know, we give us a job and we'll find someone for you. You're now saying, if you want access to this niche that I've built up of pre-checked, high quality people, many of which won't work through anybody else except us, then we need to engage. And not all our recruitment was like that, I have to say, but a big proportion of it was. And certainly the bigger areas, people like Wendy Merricks and Rob Malaband had niches that really drove their business forward, right? And I think that's a really big thing. Get niche, because it changes
Proper
an awful
niche
lot
as
of the
well.
way in which you sell. Say again?
Proper niche, because I think we've spoken on this show before about the difference between a proper niche and just a specialization.
Yeah.
You know, if you specialize in IT, that's not a niche.
A niche is when you've cornered a market, really. Right. So we are going to do a show on niche. Actually, the whole show is on niche because it's such an important thing. But the second thing that we did, and this is kind of a big thing, really. Again, does it sound a bit American cursed? I don't know, really.
No, I think this is the problem with this one is it's one of those things that people say but don't actually do. People
Let's dig
say that
into that.
they are gonna commit to it, but then it's just words on a page or on the wall or on a document when people start to work there. It's not something that they build into their business, if that makes sense.
Let's unpack it then, because I think this made a big difference. First thing to say is it's something that's very, very simple to measure, because you go and see a client or you ring them up and you say, can I ask a question? And they say yes. And you say, tell me honestly, are we your first choice agency when you have a need? And they're either going to say, yes, you are, in which case, that's very nice. Thank you for that. Could you tell me why? What do we do that you really like? Because in many cases, you do things that they really like, but you don't know how much they appreciate them. And sometimes you can stop doing them by accident.
And they're normally quite small, or they're a specific consultant thing. You know, maybe they all deal with Joe Blogs and Joe Blogs does this thing and you think,
we can replicate that. We could move that out to other people. It's called
positive deviance, isn't it?
Positive deviance. Well done, Kirst. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's the obviously one answer, the one you want, but the answer, the other one you're going to get quite a lot is no, you're not actually, which is fine. I get that. I respect that view. Use other agencies. The question is, what one thing could I do which would move me just a little bit closer to being that first choice? I'm not asking to go there in 1 leap or 10 leaps or 100 leaps, but I want to move closer. And very often they'll tell you, or they'll say, no, I'm always going to use 3 agencies and that's the deal. Okay. Yeah. No, I understand. Having said that, even when people have said that to me, if you commit to being that first choice, do you know what? Gradually you'll move closer and closer towards it. And it's not about the secret or anything, you know, that they that book that you can read. But I do think if you focus on something, you're more likely to achieve it. And that is a key element. Now, you may have noticed as well that I said we did the same for contractors. You might say candidates, but we wanted the contractors to be loyal to us. So that given the choice of two agencies, they'd choose us. When they went on client site, they'd say nice things about us. Even if it was a client site that they were working, they weren't even through us. We picked up a couple of clients, big clients. RS Components was one, 7Trep was another, by people who'd worked through other agencies, just putting a good word in for us. So I think that commitment to first choice is absolutely crucial. Now, some of that will come from an obsession with quality, because only the best is good enough. And if you're not prepared to do that and stick to it, then you're never going to hit that mark. But if you do, people like it and they want more of it. So part of it is to do with that.
I think with that as well, it's part of the difference between being a leader and being a person who's really good at it and owns a business, is because you should be delegating those tasks that other people can do, so that as a business leader, your focus is on those relationships with your clients and with your contractors and with your candidates, checking in whether they're first choice, doing those tweaks, figuring out what those positive deviations are. So they all sort of link, all these tips sort of link together.
It's much easier to do that in the factory model.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard for 360s because they've got so many things to do and so many stakeholders to serve. But if you've just got somebody whose job it is to find the contractors of the candidates, then they can move in those circles and they can get to know them quite well and build that trust. We spent, I think I said this last week actually, we spent as much or more per head of contractor than we spent per head of clients on entertainment. beer and curry, apparently. Seems to go down really well.
Dark time for all of the
They
people
were
at
great
SK,
times.
wasn't it? Yeah.
But this commitment to that first choice then starts to kind of bleed into the way in which you treat people. We had a communications, very simple communications protocol. You rang everybody every 6 weeks, contractors and clients alike, really, and go and see them as many times as you can, and just make them feel. We used to say 95% like your friends, clients and contractors, 95% like your friends. And again, that's not a throwaway cliche. This really is about thinking about the sort of things that you do with your friends, how you keep in contact with them, the sort of interactions that you have with them, what you know about them, what you learn about them, how you act upon that knowledge, and replicating that with your clients and your contractors. Now, people don't do it these days because everybody's terribly transactional. And we had this thing, right? I was doing a coaching session this morning with someone, and we were talking about client care, which is partly what this is, extreme client care. And I said, you want your people to be the kind of person that your clients would like to go for a beer with. That's the deal. Bit of banter, open, friendly, lots of time, not just about the money all the time. It's that ability to engage with people. If you do that, they like to be with you. It's a pleasure to be with you. It's a pleasure to spend time with you and talk to you. When the phone rings, it's Mike, how you doing? And not being operational straight away. Actual thick banter. And the more you learn about people, the easier it is to do that. So you've got this kind of situation where you're keeping in contact with people a lot, not just operationally. Can I use another cliche? Would you mind?
I'll allow it just this once, but only this once.
Occasionally, you've got to get off the operational highway and spend some time in the relationship rest area.
It's a big favourite of yours.
What that means is, by the way, boys and girls, is that most contacts are about a piece of work or getting work or a vacancy or an opportunity, and you're talking to people about that thing. Of course it is. But that's not where relationships are built. Where strong relationships are built are where you're not talking about work, like the relationship rest area. So you have to manufacture opportunities to do that. Of course, you can tack that kind of relationship jibber jabber at the beginning and end of operational discussions, but it's just nice sometimes to ring someone up and say, how are you? How are things? How are you doing? How was the marathon you ran last month or whatever? And I know it sounds very easy, but a lot of people just don't do it. And I struggle sometimes to persuade people to do it because they don't see the value of it. It's massive.
I think the key to remember is it doesn't go from that. We sometimes get in trouble by kind of relating it to dating, in that you don't start talking about marriage and kids on your first date, or if you do, alarm bells should be going off in the other person. But you would start casually like, I hope you had a nice weekend, and that person might go, oh yeah, I went to the football and watched the Wolves triumphantly win. And then you know that they're a Wolves supporter. Excellent, legend. So this isn't like you go straight away like, did you have fun at the football? Because they haven't told you that. Like it's a delicate, gradual thing that over 6 months, a year, you'll create this stronger relationship. It's like anything; it takes time, which is why I think a lot of people fear
social media
it.
a lot more these days as well to do those interactions. So I don't want to dwell upon that too much, but it's such a big thing. And the key to that, all of the things that we've been talking about, is this. It's very simple. And this is psychology. You can read this. This is like research driven. You think of your friends, you make them feel special, appreciated, trusted, and understood, and they'll do exactly the same right back at you. That is the key to building strong relationships. And a client might be a client, but first they're a human being. And the same goes for contractors. So if you can get into that space where you're actually spending time to make people feel special. So, for example, remembering things that they've told you and acting upon it, using their name, not including them like we did this morning on an email, and we got the name wrong at the beginning. Did you see that? Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah. Mel didn't change the thing, so it went out, dear first name. I mean, that's the exact opposite of being made to feel special. Everybody knows that's a mailer because it's how we promote.
Everybody's done that mistake, though, haven't they?
I know, but
made
it's the opposite to what you should do, right? Should send things out. It's like I was talking to someone again this morning about sending emails out to people I haven't spoken to for a bit, and then we're going to send like an email out through Mailer. And I said, no, No, it's very important. You just find something, go on their LinkedIn, see what they've been posting about, and make the first sentence about that. So it proves that you've written something about them. Or if you've got a thing going on, you've got a shared interest, and we mention that really. Make it very specific to them. So the more you can do that, the stronger the relationships will be that you build. And they'll want to deal with you. Being first choice isn't first choice by a country mile, it's by a millimeter.
Yeah, because a lot of people, especially in recruitment, I'm not diminishing what everybody does. I think it's a very difficult job to do, which is why I don't do it anymore. But essentially, you put a bum in a seat. There are various forms of it. Sometimes you headhunt, sometimes it's just literally whoever you can do it. But to make yourself first choice on what you actually do is quite difficult. So you do have to find the sort of stuff around it that helps you to become first choice, and that element is by forming a relationship with the individual that you're working with, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Now, I'd like to deviate from our normal kind of path if I can, Kirsty Elizabeth. Oh, I know.
I hate change. So
I
I'm
know
not.
you
I'm not.
do.
I'm not built
I,
for it.
I don't know whether we've got any questions to deal with, but I'll look at those in a minute. But what I'd like to do is I'll do the summary today because I want to use the graph. That's all. So normally it's you that does it. I know.
Well,
But
just
I,
out of a job.
I want
That's
to
what I
do the
am.
summary, right? So, okay, so this is the journey of a lot of companies. What they will do is they'll start off using all their network and all the people that they know, and they'll end up, whoops, sorry about that. They'll end up with that kind of growth.
You haven't got the highlight clicked on. Click a color.
Sorry, everybody. Sorry. Okay. They'll end up with that kind of growth. It's quite steep. It's a healthy growth. It's very, very common then for people to hit some kind of plateau. And if you don't change things, what you'll do is that. That's very common. What we did was reorganize ourselves to be scalable. So we dropped dependence on key individuals, or started to, and depended instead on processes and tools and techniques that we could replicate. We made things simpler. We de-skilled processes. We made things measurable so we could understand what was going on from data, not by having to sit with people. I mean, these are all the principles of scalability, and I'm sure you all know them. But by doing that, and it took us about 15, 16 months of working with Anne-Marie Hanlon, by doing that, and I learned how to delegate, actually, it was pretty cool. What that meant was it unlocked a huge amount of potential, which I believe is in most companies. I'm not saying you can do that because this is contract and it was a different time, but there is massive potential if you unlock it. And that's a crucial thing, that recognition that it's there for you if you want it, but you won't get it. What do they say? Definition of madness, Kirsty? It's
Doing the same thing each time, expecting a different result.
Right, doing the same thing over and over the same each time and expecting to result. Well, that's what that is. It's like, well, okay, I'll grow, I'll lose some people, I'll lose some clients because service levels drop. I'll pick myself up, I'll start again, and it's just replicate it. And it's very, very common. I don't know whether you've all come across the concept of a scissor company. Do you know what that means?
I do not.
There's a scissor. That's your turnover. That's your profit. Very, very common. Very, very common in recruitment companies, scissor companies. And it's because of that. It's because of that undulation. So to avoid that, you need to get yourself into a scalable place. And for me, the three biggest things or four biggest things was learning how to delegate, obviously, because that made a massive difference. We started to use niche to certainly open up clients and dominate clients. We knew how to deploy basically within a client set. And then we really did commit to that first choice. We asked people. My job at the end was just to go and see people for lunch and play golf with them, and basically ask them that question really, and then act upon what I learned. And that was the thing I think that made the biggest difference to us. But as part of that as well, of course, is that you get that you achieve that first choice by being great at what you do, which is why quality is such an important thing. But also by being a personable person. When the phone rings, they want to answer it because they know it's going to be a bit of fun, a light relief, just a nice person to talk to. When you say, do you fancy a coffee? They jump at the chance, or a bite to eat or something, because you're putting them as a person first and a source of revenue second or third or fourth. And that is something that doesn't happen in transactional businesses where the entire focus is what you do at the end of the month. Because you can say what you like to your people, and they can say what they like right back to you. But ultimately, they'll go where the money is. And if you've got a very highly stacked commission structure, that's what they'll do. They'll go for the money, and they won't do all these great things which created that kind of growth. So all in all, I think it's eminently doable for anybody. They're not special things. You can learn how to do them very easily. Mostly it's an internal commitment to make this happen.
Okay, all right, thank you. We have got a couple of comments. So a lot of them are sort of me telling everybody on LinkedIn to come over to YouTube. And once again, thank you so much for doing that, everybody who's watching. We're really sorry. We'll try and get it fixed for next week. Can only apologize. We have got a comment which I like when we're talking about niche. I very much enjoy this. A real niche is something that's small enough to be a number one recruiter in the world in your niche. Do you think that's right,
Well,
Mike?
I'd build on that actually. And the numbers in contract, the numbers are somewhere between 400 contractors and 1,000 contractors. That's what they say. If the contractor base that you're operating in is say England or something, or Britain or whatever, or Europe, then it's that kind of number, because that's big enough to make money out of, lots of money, but not too big that you can't corner it. You can't be the number one choice. So it's a very good point.
Okay, fantastic. And then the other thing I like is this. I mean, this I grew up with Mike saying this to me, is that people buy from, and strangely, I'm not in any way exaggerating. I did
We
grow up.
amend that slightly. We say people buy from people that they know, like, and appreciated by. And
Yeah,
what would you not?
exactly. So, Mike, all that's left is two things. Is I'm going to come to you in a second and ask if people want to do this, if they want to turbo boost their recruitment, the first thing they should do. I know you've given us four, but the first most important step they should take. But before then, we're doing something a little bit different next week, because we were originally going to talk about profit, but obviously we've spoken a lot today about delegation as well. So there will be a poll on LinkedIn, which Michael will be posting. Is this correct, Michael?
It is immediately after the show. It'd be a small thing, probably only for people like us that come into this show. So you're not going to get a lot of votes on it, but I want to know what you want us to do. Either I can dig into delegation, which is something that is very close to my heart, because I know it's a key to scalability. If you can't delegate, you can't scale. So I'm happy to talk about that and share what I've learned over the years. Or originally we were going to do how to boost profits without turnover. In other words, how not to get a scissor company. So what we're going to do, I think, is put that out. You vote, and we'll go with the one that you say. Truth be told, we're going to do both of them.
It's just which one we're going to do first. That's all it is. It's just which one we're going to do first. We're going to do both. So look out for that. So now, yes, everyone loves polls. Everyone loves polls.
Well, whoopity do. Yes, a poll, but it means something this time, because we're going to act on it. So
we're doing
I think
something
we can get away with that.
We have got a question, Mike, before we go into your final thing. Is you referred to having multiple niches. Is there a maximum amount of niches that you would advise?
There's a maximum number of niches any one person can have, and that's one.
Right.
So your company can have more than one. Normally, certainly in a recruitment business, you might say, well, okay, I've got 10 people in it. Well, you're only probably going to get four probably who really commit to the niche. But that's enough. That will open up business for you, open up clients for you, and make that process of being number one supplier so much easier.
Do you think that all the niches have to have like a common thread? So you either only deal with SMEs, like different things within SMEs, or you only deal in technology,
not really.
or does it not matter at all?
Not really. No, as a company, you really should focus on a higher niche. I mean, there's niches and micro niches, as you know. We talked about it before, and we're going to talk about building them again in the future, because it's such an important thing. So a niche could be, well, I deal with manufacturing companies or something. That's fair enough. But you've got to micro into that. So someone was saying to me yesterday that one of their niches is a programming language called C++. So I'm thinking, really? I mean, really?
Don't think that
And he
could
said,
be a
no,
niche.
well, because I don't know the language. He said, no, there's different bits of it, and we niche in on this. You got a micro niche.
Right.
And
Okay.
you want to be the go-to guy, the go-to girl for whatever it is that your niche is. Takes ages to build. It really does. So well worth it. The money is enormous when you get it right.
Okay, fantastic. And thank you very much, Nikki. I hope that answered your question. And finally, Big Mike, just to round off, what is the first thing that people should do? The number one thing in order to create a boosted recruitment business, what should they do?
Well, there's no surprises. actually, with this, it's that. It is the root cause of scale. And what gets me, I thought I was a good delegator. I'm convinced of it. I was so wrong. I was just a dreadful delegator. And I still have my moments now where I'm, not as good as I should be. But back in the day, I thought I was great because I was getting rid of stuff, but I was just sharing it or abdicating it. And of course, a lot of it went wrong. So the ability to learn how to delegate, bigger than our normal tip, I know that, but it's so important.
And so you would recommend like finding a course, or I mean, there's loads of stuff on like LinkedIn Learning. I know there is YouTube. There'll be books, things like
there's
this.
loads
This
of it. You
should
just
be a
Google
focus,
it.
really.
Google it in YouTube, or you can attend the next show that we do on it, which is another option. I've got a very pragmatic approach to it, which I was taught, obviously, and have refined over the last 30 odd years. So, but I do think it's a key. Most people think they are, and they're not. But if you can be, it changes everything.
Okay, fantastic. So just to round off, thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Thank you so much for coming over to YouTube if you've watched it live. Really appreciate that. And if not, then I'm sure we'll rerun this on LinkedIn so everybody can see it. As for next week, look out for that poll. Let us know which one you would prefer us to do. And we very much look forward to seeing you next Thursday.
And we will see you next week. Take care.